Flights are pricey, planning feels chaotic, and that family trip keeps getting pushed. I hear it every day from business owners and busy professionals, and I felt it too. I'm Ross, the founder of Itinerary Boss, and your host. After 10 plus years of planning work and personal trips to over 20 countries, I became the guy who found the deals and turned points into upgrades. This show helps you turn everyday business and personal spend into points and miles for premium travel. Each week, you'll get step by step tactics and short episodes, plus expert guests with specific use cases tied to your most asked questions for travel plans that'll help support your business, goals, and your life. Go ahead and grab the free Points and Miles cheat sheet in the show notes to speed up your learning. And now, on with the show. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy. I'm excited to have my guest, Hunter Threadgill, today. He is the professor of points. He writes at the Points Analyst, and he's also the chair of Frequent Traveler University. Really excited to have you here today, Hunter. How's it going?
Going good. Thanks for having me, Ross. Super pumped to be here. I've been listening to your podcast over the past few months, and I really love the conversations that you're having and the guests you're having.
Yeah, man. The guests make it easy. I'm the host, Ross, and I just bring on really smart guests and I just ask questions and I get to learn. That's the best part about doing this, and then provide some value and try to throw in a couple of jokes here and there. But yeah, man, really, really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, we're going to get into a lot of good stuff today. I know I mentioned Professor of Points. I love that name. So if you're listening, you're going to learn a lot, obviously, from the professor, but also he is the chair of FTU, which is Frequent Traveler University, and I'm excited to be speaking there this upcoming May. And those guests that he talks about and how we got connected, they all go there to speak. So if that's something that you're trying to learn more about points and miles, it's a great conference. Definitely plan to check it out. But today we're going to be diving into positioning flights. Everyone always asks, how do you get great business class flights? I might live in Arkansas. How do I fly right to Europe? So we're going to be diving into all those things. How do you find award availability? All of that stuff. So really excited to have you here. So for anyone who's new to points and miles, right? Like, what is a positioning flight and why do people actually use them?
So a positioning flight is a flight that is taken in order to be able to reach that super desirable redemption. So one of my favorite examples of this is that Emirates flies from they have one flight that stops in Athens, and you can take this is from the U.S. and you can take that flight from the U.S. and stop in Athens, which everybody wants to fly Emirates. It's the epitome of business class, first class experience, the aura around it. But the problem is they only fly from Newark. Now, I live in Washington, D.C. My home airports have been everything from Memphis, Birmingham, Alabama, Tallahassee, D.C. I have to get to Newark in order to take that flight. And so what a positioning flight is it's a domestic flight that is booked separately from your aspirational international flight itself that sets you up so you can take that aspirational flight. It's often two different ticket purchases, but what it allows you to do is use a small number of miles to fly a domestic trip of some sort in order to be able to go to a place that has a lot more award availability and make your long haul flights, which is the most important flight on any sort of itinerary, you can get that business class seat that you actually want to take.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, and I appreciate you breaking that down. I think a lot of people they think points don't work, and I think that's a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I want to fly out on a Friday, I want to fly home on a Sunday, peak times, peak season from this
Mhm.
airport. I don't live near a hub," and that's the first thing people come to a conclusion of. So that's where positioning flights really help. And I think too, people sometimes think it costs too much. It costs significant amounts of money. You have to spend tons of, dollars in your day-to-day business. There's no way to do it. So I think understanding your background too, like how did you get into this whole game of points and miles? And, I think it'd be good just to hear that because I know that some of those assumptions you can really nick because you have some strategies
Yeah.
that you've done.
Absolutely. So it's actually kind of it's a really fascinating story. So my persona is the professor of points. The reason I chose that is because I have my PhD in psychology. Now, I mentioned that one of my home airports in one place that I've lived is Birmingham, Alabama. I got my PhD at the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. And my then girlfriend, fiance at the time, was living in Charlotte. Now, I was a graduate student. I made $15,000 a year, one round trip flight from Birmingham, Alabama to Charlotte, North Carolina, about a 7 hour drive. Direct flight on American Airlines was $444. I had to figure out how to make that actually palatable to someone with a $15,000 a year salary. And so that's when I really started digging into these domestic flight redemptions because let's be real, a positioning flight is really just taking that international flight and adding a domestic leg to it. And you can really use this for any kind of domestic itineraries that you go on. And so, to be able to see my wife, now wife, I needed to figure out how am I going to get up to Charlotte? Because I didn't want to drive 7 hours on a Friday, hang out all weekend, then drive back 7 hours on Sunday night. I was teaching at 9 a.m. on Monday, and I was like, this is not going to work for me. And so that's really how I started having to figure out how we're going to actually get from point A to point B. Then once I actually started like digging more into actually, we got married and we can like start taking those international flights. Okay, it's like I actually have built this unique skill set that I can actually use to position us around the country in order to be able to fly to, to London, to fly to Doha, to fly wherever I needed to fly to Athens, and be able to enjoy my journey a bit more.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's cool I always like hearing people's stories because everyone like I love how you connected the PhD with Professor of Points.
Oh yeah.
That's perfect. The persona is great. But it's always interesting and fascinating just to hear people's story because like, I got my degree, I got a expensive sports administration piece of paper up there that does not get put to use at all, right? Maybe for knowing stats for ESPN, but not right. It's so I think it's always interesting and fascinating to hear people's backgrounds. And that's I was traveling out for work, and I stopped traveling because I wanted a better work-life balance, and like I was planning our group trips, traveling a lot, learning that, but then it's like, how do I optimize? How do I maximize,
Mhm.
right? And I want to go business class, all of that internationally. So it's interesting once you kind of find what you're good at in that niche that then you can start to really dive into it. And
Mhm.
there's also, I just had Max Craig on. He was talking about positioning
Oh,
flights from your home airport, right? Like using airline miles, like we're an American hub. If you're in DC, you're either at Dulles or right American and DCA. And it's like
mhm.
you can use those to then get you to where you want to go to then take that Doha trip over to, if you want to go to Athens, places like that. Like when do you feel like it makes the most sense just to use a positioning flight? And then when do you think maybe it's not, doesn't make the most sense?
So I think the first thing you should always do is one thing when you're taking positioning flights is by separating out your flights into two separate record locators, you do run that risk of like, what if my first flight is delayed or canceled and it creates an issue? This is your cruise ship dilemma. Whenever you take a cruise, what do people say? Fly into Miami or wherever you're flying or wherever you're going from the day before, because your ship will leave without you. Like this is very common in the cruising community. Same with the positioning flight. But anyways, the first thing you should always do is there availability from your home airport to wherever you're wanting to go? So, for example, I was flying to London in graduate school. I had a conference in Vienna, but I had some friends in London I was going to go see. And I was like, well, let's just see, like, is there something from Birmingham, Alabama? There was. It was like $450 ticket round trip from Birmingham to
Wow.
London. And I was like, I took the first flight up to Chicago, and then I got to take the day flight from Chicago to London. And I was like, hallelujah, no overnight flight and economy. And so, but because I was able to keep those tickets together, if I had missed that flight from Chicago to London, they would have been responsible automatically for putting me on the next flight. Same with award tickets. If I was living in Tuscaloosa at the time, was going from Birmingham to Chicago to London on an award ticket. Same principle still applies. If I miss my
Hey, I wanted to take a quick break to say thank you so much for tuning into the show. The only way the show grows is through listeners like you helping us share it. So if you're enjoying the show, it'd mean the world to me if you hit that 5-star rating, shared it with a friend or family member who's ready to travel more, save money, or just needs a little bit more inspiration and that nudge. And if you're posting about it on Instagram, go ahead and tag Itinerary Boss, and we'll make sure to reshare it and shout you out for giving us a shout out. Thanks so much for the support. It truly means a lot. And now back with the show.
flight to London, they still are responsible for getting me there. It might be a day later, but I don't have to worry about it. So that's like the first thing that I would always recommend for that. The second thing is, like I said, using the cruise ship example, you probably want to leave yourself enough of a buffer so that way if there is an issue, you're able to take care of it. So I think a good example of this is my folks live in Austin, and there is a decent amount of availability from Dallas for some things. And there is a million flights that go from Austin to DFW on American Airlines. Um, like I think that's like I think they have 12 flights a day. So if they take the 6 a.m. flight and they miss it for some reason, they can get on the 7:30 flight. Um, but if it's like one flight a day, you obviously want to go the day before to make to have that issue. And then finally, what you really want to do is you really want to, if you can't find anything direct from your home airport with a layover, you really want to start looking for those big hubs. And when you're looking at those big hubs, really try to understand where can I fly from. So, for example, I lived in Tallahassee, Florida. We didn't fly internationally during that time. It was COVID time. And so we didn't do anything international. It would make a lot more sense for me to look for these connecting flights along the East Coast, New York, Boston, Philly, Dulles, than if I were to look in LA. I mean, I'm sure I could have found something, but there was no direct flight from Tallahassee to LA. I needed to have something that made it super easy because once you start adding in more connections, there's more opportunity for things to go wrong. And so that's why you really want to, like when you're building out your itinerary, if you don't have that single ticket that that you're looking for, you want to build out what actually makes sense and what has availability. So that way, if something goes wrong on your first leg, you're still treasuring that big leg. That is the most important thing. It's that Q suites to Doha that you want to protect that at all cost.
Yeah, we funny. An example, I'll give two examples because I think this will help people. But like coming out of Charlotte, we have a lot of good availability, but sometimes getting over to Europe, going to some of like you talked about to Doha, we don't have direct flights and not on Q Suite. So, example, we went to Atlanta and they had directs to Doha to then go to Thailand where we were going. And we decided, does it make sense to drive to Atlanta or does it make sense to take a flight? And for us, it's about a 3.5 hour drive. So we decided to drive. We got up early, went down, enjoyed the lounge, everything.
Hmm.
Hindsight, I kind of wish we flew because coming home it was a lot.
Yeah,
What?
I
Go,
believe that.
yeah, yeah. Coming back from Bali, so you kind of have to think through like how long is that drive? If it's over 3 hours, does it make sense to fly down? And then another one is going to South Africa, flying into where you're at, Dulles. And you also can think through too, if you are going to some of these places, think about do you have friends? Do you have family? My best friend lives right outside Dulles, so we get to fly up, spend a full day, see him and his wife. When we come home, same thing, catch a very cheap United flight back to Charlotte on or American on points, right? And those are the type of things where it's not like, oh, I have to, fork out another $400 or $500 for a hotel stay night. And that's too where I'm curious your thoughts. Like, if you are doing the cruise ship type strategy where you're flying in the night before, are there ways to think about points? Do you stay at the hotel airport? Do you go into the city? Do you make a trip out of that? Like, what's your experience there?
So for me personally, if I'm even considering doing a positioning flight, it's for a really big trip. It's going to the Maldives, it's going to, Thailand or South Africa. So I just make it a bonus vacation day. I try not to mess around with hotel airports. There are a couple that actually like, I know Dulles has some airports that are pretty nice for an hotel airport, but you never know what you're going to get with those because they have such high turnover. They can be such a mess to deal with. And so I view it as like a bonus vacation day. So, for example, using the cruise ship example, I took a cruise out of Miami, flew in the day before, stayed at the Hyatt Regency Coral Gables, picked up some champagne to take on this trip on the ship with me. And you have to remember when you're doing these positioning flights, you're going into massive cities. You're going into LA, you're going into Seattle, you're going into Chicago, you're going into New York. I like going to those cities. I mean, I know that people are like, oh, they're touristy or they're like business heavy or they're a pain in the butt to get around, but I'm like, I'll take a bonus day. And that way also I know I'm refreshed and ready to enjoy that long haul trip. I'm able, or if I'm coming back, I land off that long haul, I can go straight to a nice hotel, get a nice big bed, maybe order some room service if that's what I'm feeling. And it just makes it a really great time. And it's just another bonus vacation day. I'm not using this when I'm going to Phoenix, I'm using this when I'm going to Asia or Africa or even South America at times.
No, no, that makes sense. What about so like how should be people be thinking about if they are making a bonus vacation day? Are there strategies with, hotel points? Like how does that for someone who's just getting into this hobby, like what are some best strategies that you've used if you don't have friends in that city? I know you mentioned the Hyatt, Regency and Coral Gables, but like how are you paying for that? Is it cash? How do you decide on that?
It really depends upon what my plans are during the city itself. If it's going to be something like if I'm going to New York City, it actually is kind of a pain in the butt to get into and out of the city. So I might stay out closer to the airport and just find a really nice hotel with a pool using Hyatt points because those are super cheap with Chase Ultimate Rewards. Um, and but generally speaking, I'm looking for a hotel that is easy to get to and from the airport. Even if it's a 30-minute drive, it's still easy for me or easy for an Uber driver. Um, or I'm looking for something that just it's right in the place where I want to be, where I can actually enjoy that bonus day and still make it out to my flight on time and not have to worry about anything. The key for that hotel is just making it stress-free. And I'm using points for that. There are, flights, there are a certain amount of flights per day. There's an almost infinitely more number of rooms available. So it makes it a bit easier. And, um, I've worked hard. I want to enjoy my time. So I'm going to stay in a nice hotel on points.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a great strategy. It's yeah, if you have them and if you're lucky enough, and I mean, obviously most places that you're doing positioning flights to are going to have Hyatts near them, utilize it. And again, if you have friends or family that live near there, it's a bonus day to see them, spend time with them, and could probably get a free night and a free meal. So that's
For sure.
that's that's
Oh,
another.
and another thing too is so a lot, I've picked up a lot of hotel cards over the years, and I've actually kept some of them for the free night certificates. That's a great time to use them. So for example, if I have the IHG card, the old school one, the $49 one that I still can't believe they haven't forced me to change. Um, and that's a great opportunity to actually burn those free night certificates, because you're going to go on a luxurious stay. You can get a nice hotel still, but you don't have to have the nicest one. Like when I went to the Maldives, I was going to stay in a nice hotel, like the nicest hotel that I
Yeah.
could afford. But I can use I can burn those certificates, which is a great time to use those.
Yeah, no, that's a great strategy. And a lot of people always ask about hotel branded cards. How should you track their free nights? How do you use those? I love that those, right? If you have a couple, like if that's built into your strategy and you know you are going to be traveling internationally, save those. Because yeah, I need to think about that strategy for some of our stuff coming up with
Yeah.
the
I
Hyatt and
use
the Yeah,
Yeah, I love I don't carry many of those anymore. I used to carry all of them. I don't really do it anymore, but I use them for the one road trip a year we make or the one positioning flight we take a year, and it just makes life a lot easier to know, hey, I've paid my $99 or in my case $49 and I get
yep.
that legacy IHG card that I'm never you have to pry from my uh cold dead hands.
I love it. I love it. Are there any certain like days of the week, months of the year, obviously off season, but like days of the week or just even specific airports that you've found have some of the best like international, a lot of availability, as well as a really good to position to?
hmm Definitely. So, interestingly, if you're looking for your single ticket, I found, at least on the East Coast, Charlotte's a great layover to get over to Europe. If you fly straight from Charlotte, it's a lot more difficult. But if you have that layover into Charlotte, the award availability opens up. So in terms of airports that I recommend, Chicago is one that really gets you pretty much anywhere. You have a lot of availability. A lot of airlines within the alliances are going to want to fly to Chicago. It's one of the biggest cities in America. Boston has often quite a lot of availability. Boston's a weird city. I work up there in my day job, and but like the number of airlines that fly there that fly with empty seats is astounding. I'm not really don't fully get it. I get it because there's a lot of business activity there, but that also means on a lot of days when there's a lot of business class seats that go out empty. In terms of the West Coast itself, Seattle, or Vancouver, I often find a lot of availability out of those two places, particularly as a bridge into Asia, like North Asia, and specifically also for going to Japan. San Francisco has quite a bit because it is so business heavy. There are quite a few days where there's just not selling all the seats, so they make them availability. And then the one that I've been finding a lot recently is Phoenix. And that's specifically because a lot of the Taiwanese airlines, given that there is a lot of investment in chip manufacturing in the Phoenix area, a lot of the Taiwan airlines have started flights to Phoenix, and lo and behold, a lot of them partner with Alaska or American Airlines, and it makes it very easy to find that. Not very easy, but it makes it a lot easier to find that Asia itineraries to actually be able to book. You have to get to Phoenix, but if you can get to Phoenix, you can usually find availability over to Asia.
That's a perfect place to go to a layover. Go play golf, dude.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I
Go
love
play
it.
golf or like go to the dunes or something and
Man,
exactly.
we're learning more than just airline points. We know exactly where we need to invest our money for the next REITs and chip manufacturers. That's
Yeah.
but no,
So
that's interesting. I knew Chicago, Boston. It's cool to hear the specific reasons why.
mhm.
And it's not just okay, JFK, Dulles, like those are the ones that outside of where on the East Coast we're usually looking. That's very, very interesting. So I appreciate you sharing that.
When you're thinking about it, the key thing is two things. One, where you're going to have a good amount of business activity, but it's not an even spread amount of business activity. So Boston, that's a good example of it. And then another example too is where you are multi-hubbing. Chicago has both American and United, and all of their friends come to that airport. And then one other one that I actually didn't mention is you want to look at flights that go to cities that is not a hub for that specific alliance. Now, let me kind of give you an example. Dulles Airport, big United hub. Um, Lots of controversy about whether it's going to remain a United hub. It's going to. I don't care what anyone says. It's too big an operation, too big to fail. British Airways flies three flights into the Washington, D.C. area every day. Virgin Atlantic flies into Dulles every day. That's four flights to London, and then you've got all your United flights. United's probably I don't I haven't really looked, maybe three or four flights a day to London, I'm assuming from Dulles. Seven or eight flights a day. Now, British Airways and Virgin Atlantic has zero connectivity out of Dulles. Zero. None. It's a United hub. There's no American Airlines. There's no Delta Airlines there. I mean, obviously going to their hubs, but like that's just not going to be the case. And you're going to find a lot of availability when you take foreign airlines out of competitors' hubs. So British Airways, super easy to find availability flying out of Dulles. Like there's one flight that leaves in 4 hours. I would guess there's at least two seats available. I haven't looked. I'm just guessing, but that's what I would assume. And so just like thinking about it strategically like that. If I want to fly to London out of Atlanta, look at British Airways. You're probably going to find some availability because it's a Delta Virgin Atlantic hub. So yeah, it we competition breeds availability when it comes to the points and miles world.
I love it. I love that. That's a That's a next level strategy that I don't think many people are thinking about. So I appreciate you sharing that. Oh, as we're on the topic of Europe, are there any specific, I know London's easy to get to. I know
Mhm.
there are a lot of the times going to be more fuel charges and surcharges, even if you are booking with points. So maybe if you want to touch on that a little bit, why that is, but then also too, are there other European hubs that are good for people to position if they don't want to pay some of those, surge charges?
Absolutely. So I think that Paris is a really great one to get into and out of. Amsterdam can be because and that's more specifically because Air France KLM they're really focusing on transfers for gaining market share, gaining revenue, points transfers from credit cards, and so they want to make that availability so that way you can get to anywhere into Europe from those two hubs. Um, Madrid, surprisingly, or Barcelona on Iberia, you can often it comes in drops. It comes in spurts. It's not going to be all the time, but you'll randomly just find random availability there. But I think Paris and Amsterdam are definitely the two places you're going to go to the most. And additionally, if you're looking to book in closely, like within 2 weeks, with partner airlines, so like you want to use Air Canada miles or something, Frankfurt or Munich, you can often find some availability because Lufthansa, they're going to make their availability within 2 weeks, a week available. They'll make all their seats available to their partners because they're like, I'd rather take that money and have someone in that seat than let it fly empty, which I totally get.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that you can transfer Rove miles to them, it just opens up a whole new ball game.
Yeah, but for more long-term planning, London, you're usually going to find something from there. But definitely look through Paris, look through Amsterdam, and that'll be your easiest for finding something.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely seen a lot in Paris when I've been searching just for toying around to go, just always looking to see like, hey, do we want to go over here in Europe? Where do we like what's a
Mhm.
good place? I'm waiting for Charlotte to get directs to Amsterdam because I love it there. My wife hasn't been, I've been twice. So it's
Mhm.
would love to get directs. I know they have them in Dulles, but need them here.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I have been in the points and miles game for about 10 years now. Never flown through Paris, never been to Paris. I feel like I'm what's the words I'm looking for? I feel like I can't really say I'm a traveler until I've been to Paris, maybe. I don't know. It just feels that way, but I definitely see availability, and I've had some layovers that I've ended up canceling. But yeah, those would be the two European cities that have a lot of availability. And what's great too is you can often get availability from Europe to Asia or Africa from there as well.
Hmm.
Using this positioning flight logic, you fly to Paris, spend a day there, fly down to into Africa, all of those former French colonies. The same kind of logic applies to that as well. You're just taking a really long positioning
Yeah.
flight.
Yeah, when we go to South Africa this spring, do we come back through Ethiopia on the same Ethiopian Airlines, or that's what we're doing on the way down, but then coming back, it was like I looked at Paris, I looked in Germany, just all the places, using flight connections to find directs. And
Mhm.
right when we were getting ready to like start to look and book, Turkish released the
Ooh.
65K from Istanbul back to the US, and I
Mm.
think I had 140,000 Capital One miles and jumped on it immediately. So we were able to now we just got to figure out what coming back from Johannesburg for if there's going to be any business availability. I think there might be Qatar, so I need that. If we can get Q Suites back, that would be awesome.
They do fly it into Cape Town, the Q Suites, so that would be awesome if you could
Yeah,
find.
that's that would be fun. Are there any like common mistakes? I know we touched on a few just at the very beginning, but anything else when people are looking at positioning flights just to keep an eye out for?
You just leave the big one, like I said earlier, is leave yourself time. You know, you might think, oh, I've got a 4 hour layover. I give myself a minimum 7 hour layover. Enough time where I could get into the city to have a meal and back if I was really pushing it. But, typically I'm also going to sit hanging out in the lounge, which is pretty relaxing, and I can watch some movies or something just to make sure I actually get what I want. Another one too is a lot of times you're going into big cities that have multiple airports. The number of times, so this is how nerdy I am. I volunteer at Reagan National Airport at the information desk. And people come to me like, I can't find my gate. It's like gate 72. And I'm like, oh, you're at the right airport. You need to go out to Dulles. Double check where you're going to be. And if you know you're going to need to make an airport transfer, like Reagan National to Dulles, super easy. Takes about an hour on the train for $6. But just make sure you leave yourself time. Like you want to make sure that your everything is lined up appropriately. That also includes the days. I have made the mistake of booking for a week earlier than I actually wanted to. Realized it 2 days later, and it was outside the cancellation window, and I had to pay $300 to change it to the flight that I actually wanted to. So that is definitely something you want to make sure that all of your dates, your times, your airports all align because you are adding complexity. You are adding something where there is more opportunity for things to go wrong. 98% of the time, nothing is bad is going to happen, but we got to take into account that 2% and just leave ourselves a buffer so that way the main priority of the big flight has is is the most important, and we can actually make that happen because that's where you're going to have the most relaxation, the most fun, and the most memories, which is why we travel anyways.
Exactly. I'm glad you bring up that point because I'm laughing because when we went, we used to do a guys trip over to Europe every summer, and we went over and we did London, Barcelona, Madrid, and Amsterdam. And on our way back, we flew in through London, started there, and then coming home, we ended in Barcelona. And if you've been to Barcelona, it's a fun time. We went to a all night beach festival. It was very fun, but then caught our flight back because it's still in,
Ooh.
yeah. So caught our flight back. We had a layover in London, and I realized this was, I think, like right when we got on the trip, I realized that I booked the return flight from Barcelona to London Gatwick, not London Heathrow,
Oh
but our
man.
flight home to Dulles, because I was living in DC at the time, was from Heathrow to there, and we had about a 4 hour buffer in between. So I was like, if we and none of the guys knew. So I was like, all right, we got to get here. We got to catch the Uber. We get there. We got in early, caught the Uber, got there. We had like 2.5 hours to spare, but it also was after like a night of being out almost all night. So at a festival, so everyone was, I was like, if this went wrong and we had six people on different itineraries, this would be such a cluster.
Yeah, that I would have panicked and freaked out, and I would have spent like the whole trip worrying about that. I probably would have called and like, I need you to change this immediately. 'Cause
Yeah.
for
But
me, I can't do that. But I'm glad y'all made it.
yeah,
Sounds
same.
like
It
a great
was,
time.
yeah, I didn't tell him until after we got through security at London.
You know, if you're gonna go that's probably the best way. It's like, oh yeah, we planned this, y'all. That's
Yeah.
how it's supposed to be.
I want to
Yeah.
keep you guys on edge.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I had to share. So I know we talked about frequent traveler university at the beginning, but for people who want to learn more, it's not just about positioning flights, right? You're bringing people who have been in the space for 20, 30 years, people who have just different knowledge. People have come on this podcast, knowledge, but who's going to get the most value from attending and what can they expect to learn?
So Frequent Travel University, it's May 1st through 3rd in Dallas, Texas at the Nilo Los Colinas, a tapestry collection by Hilton. I am incredibly excited for this event. One thing that I love about the Frequent Traveler University and what we've really worked hard to curate for this year is to have a big tent mentality where we have everyone who I've been to past FTUs where it's had everybody who from I saw this online. I just retired. I wanted to travel more. I thought I'd come and see what this is about to I live off of my credit card points. I don't have a job. My job is credit card points. And I'm like, okay, good for you. Not for me, but good for you. Um, and so what's really great is that we seek to bring a ton of different speakers in with a ton of different perspectives, all about earning and burning frequent flyer miles. And what's really great is we have built relationships with many people in the industry, with the airlines and the hotels. So we are able to offer a bit more of a perspective about like why, not only like how to use these miles and points for most optimal itineraries, for the most ambitious itineraries or the most luxurious itineraries, but also help you understand like why the airlines or hotels come at it from this perspective. It's not just like how do we maximize it for ourselves, but how do we build this within a framework of how the travel system works? And that includes everything from, we have industry insiders doing presentations to conversations with Tom Stuker, who is the world's most frequent flyer with over 24 million butt-in seat miles, all on United. Who's also a character. He's one of my favorite people to speak to at these conferences. He's got stories for days. Obviously, if you get 24 million miles, you're gonna have some stories. And it's just a really good time. We take a lot of pride in making sure and being very upfront and honest that if you come to this conference, like you're gonna be cool. You're not gonna be, a jerk about things. I'm not saying other conferences do that, but we really want a big tent mentality. Everyone can come in and learn something new. Everything from the small business owner and the real estate investor to the mom who's just like, 80% of travel is booked by women, if you have a family. To the mom who's trying to get her kids to go see grandma at Christmas, to I want to go to take my kids to Cancun, to I want to travel to Europe or Africa on my honeymoon. And it's going to be a really great time. What's also great too is that we've built relationships. We're going to do an airline tour on Friday. We're still putting the finishing touches on that before we actually announce it. It's gonna be a lot of fun though. I'm very excited for it. As well as our charity dinner, raising for our charity nonprofit partners. And it's just gonna be a really good time. It's obviously Dallas in May, so we're gonna have some barbecue, some Tex-Mex, some margaritas, some whiskey probably, and stay up way too late, swapping travel stories, travel tips, and just enjoying each other's company. It's gonna be a really good time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate sharing that. I'm excited to come, and I love how you just broke it down. And in the earn and burn, I think it's cool too because you have two separate days that you kind of talk
Mhm.
about. First, how do you earn, and then also how do you not hoard your points? And it's cool too that you have relationships with the hotels, the airlines. Just how does it work in the background? So it isn't just go earn these, then use these. You actually get to understand how does this, if you're building out a long-term strategy,
Mhm.
don't save up millions and millions of Marriott miles to then retire. Like, how do you use these to, right, enjoy your travels now? And how do you understand the economics behind it? I'm excited for that part. I'm gonna nerd out on that because I always like getting in the nitty gritty, and I know it at a high level, but nothing like a lot of people probably do.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, and I know a lot of your listeners are really into this too, is like, you can just know how to do X, but if you can frame it within a system, you're able to take that knowledge and actually move it to some place where you can even do even more with it. It's not just about understanding X and Y, factory level, like if you do X, then Y. It's understanding how all these pieces come together to create the whole. And then we can then take this and understand how do we earn these hotel, credit card, airline points, and then use them to actually burn and actually get to where we want to go. Because pretty much everyone in this hobby is like, I would never pay cash to fly Q suites to the Maldives, stay in an overwater hut. I couldn't afford it. And so, but by building out these strategies and understanding the framework for how all of these things operate, we're able to actually create a system where we can use it to our advantage. And honestly, they know people are going to use it for these outsized redemptions. That's why they built it, to give you something to actually go out and attain. So it's gonna be fun, and it's a great networking opportunity. It's a great time to hang out with people, like-minded people who love to travel, love good food, love good drink. It's gonna be a great time.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you there, and we'll make sure to link a if you want to register or sign up, we'll link that in the show notes. And if you want to connect with Hunter, where can they find you personally if they want to travel, if they want to learn more from you and anything else you got going on?
So, like I said earlier, I'm a professor of points. You can find me on Instagram at Professor of Points. I write over at The Points Analyst, thepointsanalyst.com. And then if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I do talk about some of the more higher level industry-wide loyalty program issues on LinkedIn, Hunter Threadgill, PhD.
Awesome. Well, Hunter, this has been great. I really appreciate it. If this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button. That way you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes we put out every Wednesday weekly. If you think Hunter deserves a 5-star review, I sure do. Make sure you hit that 5-star. That helps us grow the show and keep bringing on amazing guests like Hunter. And if you think someone wants to take a positioning flight or just wants to start traveling more, make sure you share the show with them. That's our goal, is to help people travel more. So I really appreciate you coming on today, Hunter, and listeners, we will see you next week.